What is up? What is going on? My name is Arvind Ram Krishna. Welcome to Driven to Draw, where we teach folks like yourself how to be creative through the very act of drawing. This is part 2 of our previous video where we had drawn a 1967 Ferrari 330 P4, and I'm now going to be drawing more of a front 3/4 view. What I'm using here is just a Sharpie pen, and I'm going to start off again with the wheels, because if you remember the previous video, and if you haven't checked the previous video, I definitely encourage you to look at it. But I'm going to start off with the wheelbase again, and this gets a little tough when you're working with a 3/4 perspective view, because when I'm drawing this, I'm totally freestyling it. I'm not doing a lot of constructions of my lines, because a lot of my foundations are kind of set. I kind of understand and know how to project or to place my ellipses and make sure they're in the right location and just the degree of the ellipse. And some of my other videos, you'll see me kind of break this thing down into a little bit more detail. And there's actually nothing wrong with putting the construction lines, because it actually adds a little bit to the drawing. It adds another dynamic to the aesthetic of the actual sketch. Something about adding the construction lines, and as long as you can get them pretty accurate and get the construction lines in the right spot and set up your drawing so that the drawing is successful, then you're good to go. Now, if you have bad construction lines and you set it up incorrectly and then you have those construction lines all over the place, then it looks terrible. Hate to tell you, looks terrible. Would that be okay? Because as you are practicing, the objective is to kind of crank through as many of these sketches as you can, because you're going to go through a lot of terrible, terrible sketches. And that's okay, because that's just part of the journey. That's the part of the journey of learning, and that's just what you need to do to get used to getting to that next level. You just kind of incrementally get better and better each time you draw. I'm going to start speeding up the video here so that we can kind of crank through some of these details. Right now I'm just going to be going to at about 150%. We'll gradually increase the video speed to about 200% here. So what I'm doing is just to make sure that as you're looking at your photo reference, and I am looking at photo reference, as I mentioned before on the previous video, that it's really important to really understand how these cars look in their various angles. When you start to design something on your own, this is kind of one of the first things that you got to do, is to draw that profile view, so you understand the proportions and you understand the overall profile of the vehicle, and then how those shapes fit within the confines of your wheelbase. Where are your arches at, and where's the roof line, and how tall is the roof line as a relationship to the diameter of the wheels, if you're using the diameter of the wheels as your measurement. And this is all kind of described and talked about in the first video. I've got it sped up here now to 200%. And now that I've sort of dialed in my front view, and I'm sort of happy with whatever I got, I'm just going to start adding a little bit of details here and there. I'll start darkening up the wheel wells inside where the tires are, and then where the headlamps are, and that just gives it that extra pop, just to bring those shapes out a little bit. I get the other side of the wheel, and then I'm going to start going to the back. I tell you, man, I get scared every time I do one of these demos, because every time I start working with a pen, and I'm not using pencils where I can erase, even now it's sort of intimidating. The other day if you look at another demonstration that I've got with drawing or capturing epic moments in sports. That's the same deal. You start off with a permanent marker and you just start to draw, and you're drawing these shapes. And sometimes when you start off, it's, obviously you're going to make mistakes because you just haven't matured and developed that foundation yet. But even after developing foundations, if you don't draw often enough, then you get rusty, and like I am here, I still get intimidated as I draw, as I start to work on this stuff, especially if I'm capturing everything on video here. So I'm just adding details here, and then actually just indicating those details. I'm not trying to be too laborious on the lines. I'm just kind of keeping it loose. I could go really technical. Sometimes when you draw, a lot of the concept artists, they start with a grayscale marker, maybe like a 30%. And then once they get the gist of the overall form, then they come back in with either a Sharpie or a Pentec, or a Pilot G-Tech, pen, which are awesome pens, by the way. Now I'm just, again, adding, the spots that need all the darker values, the intakes, and then the tires, the wheel wells. This is part of your observation. Anytime you're drawing cars, or you're drawing anything for that matter, it is really training your brain. This is what we're talking about on the previous video, that you don't have to be a professional when you're doing this stuff. But what it's helping your brain to do is to observe what these details are, and just trying to get it to the point where you can exercise your brain to understand that visual, or just to enhance your visual spatial ability. That when you have a side view profile of a shape, how do you now transfer that shape? What does that shape look like as you start to rotate that object? And cars, I will say, are really hard. They're very, very difficult at the beginning. That's why in a lot of these books you always see a lot of basic shapes. People say, well, you just draw these boxes, and you put them in the context of these vehicles, and all of a sudden these vehicles look awesome. Well, there's a reasoning behind all that. So when you start off with a box and you start to rotate the box, then your brain doesn't have to work as hard to comprehend what that box looks like in this different view. So this is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this second part of our video, and we'll see you next time on Driven to Draw, and make sure, just keep on practicing. Have a good one. So if you're enjoying all the content you're seeing so far, and you want to learn more about creativity, being creative, then be sure to subscribe. Subscribe. Take it. Learn. Create. Click on it. Subscribe. Do it now. Click on it. Click. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe. I tried. Subscribe.